Before we begin properly, I think I'm going to go and get a monster out of the fridge because based on what we've got lined up this week, I think we might be here for a while. So one sec. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Episode 2. I'm really excited for this. Welcome back, Peter.
Hello. How's it going, John?
Pretty good. I'm very excited for this one because, I don't know, I feel like I'm on a bit of a high from the first one. It was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. And I think
Nice.
we're going to come back even better with this one because there's been a lot of feedback from myself and viewers / my friends. And I think this one might be significantly improved from episode 1. I have a new overlay, which I don't know if I'm entirely satisfied with, but it's a new overlay. I mean, I think it looks a little bit more mature than the last one. It's limited because I am doing it myself and I'm not a graphics designer, but I also still want to do it myself. So there's that. Audio issues. Last time there was a big delay for you. I don't know what I did. I wasn't even able to replicate the issue, but it seems to be fixed now. So I think that's all good. And also there was some problems with the levels last time. I was a bit quiet and you were maxing out a little bit. I think it's all good now. So I think this is going to be really good. And I've been extremely excited. I've been talking about this all the week at work about getting this episode out because it's kind of stacked. There's a lot of things to talk about this week. There's just a lot of news and there's also just, I don't know, there's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of word going around. It's been a kind of a crazy week in terms of games. I mean, I kind of wanted to cover things other than games, but this week's game news has been insane. So I think we're going to be talking about a lot of that. Just some teasers, obviously the new Battlefield game that came out. That news came out right after last week's episode. Monster Hunter Wilds, people playing the beta for that now. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has had some time to settle. Etc.
Mm-hmm.
Should we get into it?
What do you want to get into first?
Well, the aforementioned Battlefield, I feel like, is probably the biggest news of the bunch. So I'm going to talk about Battlefield first.
All right.
Are you a Battlefield player? I imagine you are because you play all those types of games.
Oh yeah, I was I played the original Battlefield when it was just what was it, World War II.
Was the first one World War II? I don't even know what the first Battlefield game was. I'm not even lying.
It's Battlefield 1942. That was the whole title.
Was the one called 1946 as well?
That was the sequel. So it was it was an awesome game. I remember they even had a demo of it that was on Wake Island, and it had everything. It had the different kind of classes. Back when class-based gameplay was something people haven't really seen much of before. They had the engineer, the sniper, the medic, and it was great.
A series staple.
Oh yeah, and it was great how creative you could be. And they had, of course, the vehicles, but they were definitely more balanced back then. But to put vehicles in the game and have them fun is quite a feat. But yeah, my favorite has to be Bad Company 2.
Bad Company 2.
I don't know if you played that.
That was my first one.
That was a good one. That's a solid one. Let me tell you, one of the more solid shooters.
Oh yeah.
Just as far as the weapon balance, the vehicle balance, the way they used different the classes had perk system and whatnot. It was great. I loved it. And the destructible environments, which you rarely even see nowadays. But that was pretty huge back then.
It's actually interesting because my introduction to the Battlefield franchise was when I saw a video of the Yogscast when I was 11 years old playing Battlefield 3, but they were playing an alpha or a beta. And I thought that it was Battlefield Bad Company 2, so I bought Bad Company 2 thinking that it was 3, even though 3 wasn't out yet. That was why I bought
the better Battlefield, my friend.
I think I did, yeah. And I ended up
Battlefield.
Playing it this doesn't quite look like Battlefield 3. Because when Battlefield 3 first came out, it was a huge deal because of just how photorealistic Battlefield 3 looked. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
When I first saw footage of that game, I think I just thought it was like camera footage. It looked real at the time. Back in 2011, 2012, whenever that game came out. But and then I ended up having a ton of fun on Bad Company 2. I think I played the campaign as well. I liked the campaign. And the multiplayer on Bad Company 2 was great.
Yeah, what I didn't like about 3 was the vehicles had just way overpowered. I mean, sure, you could still take them out as a unit, but people just got free killing sprees on them, and it just the balance just felt so off. Like what I liked about Bad Company 2 was you had infantry fighting, and then here and there you'd have a vehicle. But they focused more on these massive maps with way more vehicles. So it was just a lot of vehicles fighting, and here and there was infantry.
Yeah,
So it didn't feel like the right balance.
it's pretty bad in
And
4 as well.
it really killed the game. You were yeah, it felt shitty to play as an infantry because you weren't in a vehicle. Whereas in the first one, um, you know, or not the first one, but in Bad Company 2, you really did have, some way to combat them. And there's enough infantry that if you weren't really good at being in a vehicle, you were dead.
Yeah.
So,
Battlefield 4, I think maybe it was like I don't know. That game felt really bad for vehicle spam. I think when I was playing Battlefield 4 back in the day, I used to play on like infantry only servers
mhm,
because those were like really popular. Um,
yeah.
I think my favorite though is probably Battlefield 1. I love Battlefield 1 so fucking much. Did you play much Battlefield 1?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that was a
so
pretty good one.
cool. I just
Mhm,
love the World War 1 vibe. It was great. It was so different at the time because everyone was doing modern
yeah.
games at the time.
Yeah, it was great that I liked how the weapons leaned more toward the more authentic, kind of slower firing weapons and stuff.
Yeah, they used bolt
But they
action
had a lot
rifles.
more yeah, they had a lot more, fully automatic stuff than they really
Yeah.
should have,
No, they
but that's
definitely
Battlefield for you.
take their
They're
creative
like
liberties.
guns that barely existed in prototype and stuff,
Or
and they're like,
didn't
"Oh,
exist
yeah,
at
they're
all.
all over the war." Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was kinda, lame, but otherwise, they still had tanks, but they were, the old, primitive tanks, so that wasn't super
Yeah.
terrible, but yeah, it did feel a bit more balanced, and then, um
Well,
what
one of
was
the
the one
things
after it? With the World War II one, was that 5?
that was 5. But one of the things I liked the most
Okay.
about Battlefield 1 was that they introduce a lot of because it's World War 1, so they kind of don't have no excuse not to do this. They introduced a lot of like semi-auto, which even that is kind of pushing it for the First World War, but like semi-automatic and bolt action rifles, and they made them balanced, which was a
Yeah,
really interesting like twist on gameplay for that like time period of games when everyone was playing like that was the futuristic era. It was a response to the futuristic era.
yeah,
Um and so they would give you bolt action rifles and they'd give you like this sweet spot mechanic where if you were to shoot someone between like 50 and 70 meters, they'd get one shot in the chest on with like certain bolt action rifles. And it made, and different rifles would have like a different range of sweet spot. And semi autos were often like a 2-shot kill and things like that. And they were all really powerful and
mm,
probably better than some of the like, because they, like you said, they had some like, they had like the MP18 SMG, which I'm pretty sure did not exist
right.
pre
Yeah.
1918. But yeah, that aesthetic, those bolt action rifles and the graphics were insane. Just that whole vibe was great. The maps were great. The campaign was cool. It's probably the most cinematic game up until the existence of Helldivers 2.
It was pretty cool. I did like it, and I love the environments they did, because in World War One, you just had absolutely bombed out fields and expanses that were just mud and dead trees, and it was just nasty hellscapes, and I think they did a really good job of
Yeah, they
recreating that.
nailed it. Yeah.
And it really felt like you were there in the muck. And sure, there weren't mortars going off every 2 seconds, within 30 meters of you, or however crazy it was on the front lines. But that would have been kind of lame. So, but
Yeah.
I really liked the level design and what they did with that. That was pretty cool.
And then after that was 5, which was like you said was the World War II one, but it was kind of
Mhm.
they kind of tried to pass it off like alternate universe World War II because I think they just came. I
Yeah.
think they came to the point creatively where they were like, we really want to put other stuff in it. So like toward the end of development, they just decided that it was alternate universe World War II.
What a cop out.
Strange, yeah.
That was yeah, that was dumb. But
And then
it was all
2042
right.
was 2042
Yeah, it was
flopped real hard.
yeah, it was, for a World War II game, it was but yeah, it just didn't it didn't resonate with me as much as many previous titles. So that makes sense.
Yeah,
And uh you wanted to talk about
the new announcement.
yeah,
Well,
the new announcement.
they released a trailer in which they showed, I think, like 10 seconds of of a new Battlefield game in air quotes because I feel like it's probably a way off and it might look different or it might change by the time it releases or whatever. But it looks like it's just like a Battlefield Bad Company 2/3 time period game,
Mhm.
like modern military, maybe like 10-20 years back. Just looks very Middle Eastern conflict and has nice modern weapons, which I'm always really happy to see.
Wonder if they're gonna do like the Gulf War or Iraq War or something like that. Or
Maybe
hmm.
I have no idea, but that wasn't even their main announcement. They showed like 10 seconds of this new game, but the main thing that they were promoting with this trailer was their new Battlefield Labs project, which is
Mhm.
basically, I guess, Dice's version of the whole this new thing that games companies like to do of the whole like unpaid labor free game development system, where you get the players to basically game test the game in the same way that an actual paid game tester would, but online, and send back your feedback online, which I think a lot of people are obviously very happy with because everyone wants to play the new games early, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, you get to, especially if you're a fan, you get to play it early and for free
Yeah.
and online. Um, so you get to see it, see if it's even something you're interested in. Um, the downside is, well, for the company, the downside is that um, they're showing off a unfinished product. So if it seems really buggy and shitty, people will, even though it's a beta and they know it's a beta, they'll kind of still get a really bad first impression of it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but worse for the company is they're not actual beta testers. And actual beta testers, they know how to break a game. They know what to test, what to try. They don't go in and they just start playing their buddies. And then if something pops up, it's like, oh, look, we found a bug. They purposely look for the bugs, you know. They'll go
Yeah.
in the inventory and they'll just, do weird combinations that people don't do. They'll spam keys in weird areas. They'll find, um, places in the map where you can do, odd things. They'll try ability combinations that might break the game. Um, like
It's definitely different. It's obviously different to like an actual employee
yeah,
game tester, but
yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of
So actually,
feels,
yeah.
yeah, it feels a little bit like kind of a cop out, but it's also like I said, double edged sword. It feels a little bit of a cop out. Like it might be saving them a lot of workload on game testing. And I feel like this is something that we might. I mean, there's games that have done that in the past. Obviously, early access games exist. Those are usually not AAA though. That's the thing. But it's a thing that's happened before, and I think we might start to see it more often because it really makes sense. Because it's like you said, everyone wants to play the games early, um, and it's very useful having thousands of people game testing your game and
Yeah.
telling you what's wrong with it and what needs to be fixed. But I
It's
do,
kind of a trade-off.
yeah,
I think what determines if it's good or bad is the intent.
yeah,
Because if you're a AAA company who can afford beta testers, and you're gonna say, "Nah, no beta testers. We'll just do a early access, and then we'll just see how it goes." I mean, that's really fucking scummy.
yeah,
But if you're like an indie company and you're like, "I'm working on this game. You guys want to just play it for a couple hours and tell me how it goes?" I feel like that's a bit more in line because they can't afford staff to be beta tester, and stuff like that. Um, so if this is them foregoing beta testing, then yeah, it's definitely done. But if they're still hiring beta testers, and this is just something that they're gonna do, because honestly, as someone who has been in a lot of these beta tests in the beginning,
same,
I like them.
yeah,
I know the game's gonna be buggy as shit. I just like trying it.
yeah,
Monster Hunter Wilds, that was great to test that out before it even came out. I've been in so many beta tests. I was in the one for Marvel Rivals, and that was great to see. That
yeah,
that totally got me on that. I was hyped for that game. Honestly, when I heard about it, like an Overwatch,
Marvel,
style game, I was like, from Marvel, I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know, but I played it and that got me on it. So, and
I think a lot of
Overwatch,
people kind of cringed when they heard that idea because it sounds like it sounds kind of it's
it
kind of
did. It
sloppy.
did. I mean, like, the big one of the biggest movie franchises is making a video game. Just that line, you'd be like,
It's sketchy.
"Ugh,"
Yeah,
yeah. But I was even on the Overwatch beta, and like, man, that was hype. So, I think it could be fun for gamers, but when if you use it in lieu of legitimate beta testing, you're doing a disservice to the game because you're not giving it quality beta testing, and also you're doing a disservice to the beta testers who exist to do this. And you're just like, you're not worth your money. We're just gonna have some random guy in Utah who's just gonna play the game normally, come across bugs, and not even report them. Because let me tell you, a majority of people who play beta testing who come across bugs probably don't even report them. No,
I never have
no.
in my life.
The yeah. How many people you think even fill out the sheet afterwards?
I
To
never have in my
give an
life.
impact. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
I
like
think I have
they'll
filled
say
out a sheet.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And what they want is tell me about how did this? Did you come across any bugs? Did you? What's your opinion on this? And they're just like, I don't like that one map that's in the swamp.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah.
I don't. I like the city map better. It's cool. Yeah, the buildings are awesome. Like
Yeah.
so.
This isn't the same as having an actual trained game tester. There's kind of another angle to it though that it's interesting to think about, because it kind of, I feel like it's a little bit concerning in regards to like preserving how games release. Because if
Mhm.
everyone's playing a game from the beginning of development to the end of development, then the idea of like purchasing and everyone playing a finished product at the same time starts to fade away. I think that's another way of looking at it.
Yeah, there's another angle to that is the early access stuff. There's a lot of mixed opinions on it. Like
Early access is
uh,
extremely controversial. Yeah.
yeah, on one hand, you get to play a game before it's completely made, but when it's mostly made, generally mostly made.
Mostly made.
Like I've seen some early access where it was
Scraps.
like,
They're not scraps. Like they have a functioning playable something.
yeah, I remember Baldur's Gate. Was it Baldur's Gate 3 was in early access for a while? And it was just like the first episode or something. And it felt like it wasn't even like half the game. It was but that was but I mean it came out to be a great game. But I have a friend who just won't touch early access. It doesn't matter how cool it looks. If it says early access, he's just like, ooh, no,
Yeah.
I'm staying away
Like
from
it's not
that.
a finished game, so I don't care. That kind of
Right.
thing.
Like I'm not gonna pay. And I think it's fair. And I think what's really fair is that if you're giving me a game that isn't complete, I should have a price that isn't complete. You know,
Yeah.
you should give me a really big discount if I'm getting in early before you finish the game because I'm paying you to help you finish the game, but I haven't gotten a finished game yet.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like that would be kind of more fair. But yeah, just people in general just really don't like the early access. They just want wait until the game is finished, then give it to me. Which I think, especially for indie gamers or indie game devs, is completely different. Because AAA,
Oh, absolutely. I
it's
feel
like
like yeah, this is
they're
a
they're just on a different playing field. Whereas indie
exactly.
games can just go on for years, and which is good or bad. Because it's good because people who have helped fund the project can start playing immediately, and you can get an idea of what it is, and like we were talking about the play testing, you can get feedback on the game, not in a beta sense, um, before it's even finished.
Yeah.
Whereas, but then we have games like uh, what's the one that's been in development hell forever?
Skull and
Star
Bones,
Citizen.
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen. Yep, yep. Then you have games like Star Citizen where they just never release early
Yeah,
access and they just milk
charge
people
people
for money.
£1,000 for
And they
early
have
versions of the game.
predatory DLC. That's
Yeah.
just yeah. But
Yeah, fuck Star Citizen.
that's an
Fuck Star Citizen.
extremity. That's
Yeah.
yeah. That's more an exception because in my experience, a lot of um early access is it's most of the game, and I'm okay with it. But yeah, some people wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, anyway, I have no problem. Like, obviously, for indie games, that is like that sounds ideal. The idea of an early
Mm,
access program sounds ideal for indie
yeah.
developers.
Hmm.
AAA developers, though, you really start to ask. You really start to wonder, like, why are they doing this? Like, is it because they actually, is it because they want to give the game out early and because they value this and value that, or is it just because they want thousands of outsourced work, outsourced employees, basically unpaid. But I feel like that's a really cynical way of looking at it. I just thought it would be interesting to talk about, especially because I've seen it happen to a couple of games now where they've gone through that kind of um playtesting cycle, AAA games. So I thought it would be interesting to touch on that a little bit.
Hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Um,
The actual next Battlefield
let me
game.
see.
I wish there was more to say about that, but like I said before, we saw 10 seconds of it. It looks fine. We have no idea what that game's going to be like. Um there's nothing very intelligible.
You know what the worst thing is when I'm looking at a game and I want to see if it's something I'm interested in, and all they have are those stupid videos with the
The
cinematics and
cinematic
the full motion
cutscenes.
videos and the pre-rendered everything, and you're not even seeing the game at all.
This is
You know?
something that every time there's like what's the PlayStation event called? I forget. But every time there's like a Game Awards, or back in the day like E3, me and my friends would just collectively moan in the Discord every time there was a like you said, a CGI like pre-rendered
Yeah.
animated cutscene for a game, and then they just the title of the game, and I was like, they would show the title of the game at the end of the cutscene, and I was like, okay, but like that didn't tell me anything, especially if it's when it's an existing IP. This makes sense because say you see a trailer of Master Chief being cool, you're like, oh shit, that was really cool because we know who Master Chief is, and that was a really cool trailer. But when you're a new
Yeah.
IP and you come out of the gate with a CGI cutscene, you're wasting your time because I guarantee that everyone doesn't care. I guarantee that like everyone watching doesn't care about your CGI cutscene if you're coming out of the
Mhm.
gate. That's really
Yeah.
cynical, but I just think it's true because I know from like everyone who I've spoken to who watch these events, like we all ignore or talk over the CGI cutscenes. When we see a game, though, we want to see a game, we want to see what the game's going to be like because we want to know if we're going to like it. Obviously,
Yeah. It's got to a point where in Steam, when I'm watching the videos, I'll always start from
the
the
end.
latest video, the farthest video on the right,
Yeah,
because those are usually the more gameplay oriented. Because the furthest one on the left is usually like the
the
trailer,
trailer, the cutscene.
the yeah, cutscene one. So yeah, I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're just trying to make something look nice, but
It's funny you brought
I
that
think
up because
people
that's
who
been like a pet peeve of mine for so long at these events.
yeah, people who've played games long enough, they don't want the cover art, you know. They want the gameplay
Yeah,
footage, right? I remember when you had to rent video games from the local VHS store, and they'd just be sitting on shelves. You know, it'd be the NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo games on
I
cartridges,
don't
and
remember,
they'd
but
have
obviously, but I'm going to nod along.
oh yeah, that was this is an old memory.
Hmm.
They'd have these really fancy looking, covers, and you flip it over, and it's just like this blocky,
Yeah,
8-bit
yeah. I mean,
art
we can
that
all
looked
relate to
nothing like
that.
the cover.
We can all relate to that.
Yeah.
We've all seen that cool cutscene and then seen like it's like and excuse me. We've all seen that cool cutscene and then we've seen the gameplay and it's been like some top-down 2D fucking bullshit. Not that those are bad, but like something that you just weren't expecting at all. Like it just looks terrible. We've all been there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, Metal Gear 3 is
Battle
coming
Gear
out.
3. I was kind of hoping you'd know
Yeah.
about this because
So you haven't
I'm
played much of the Metal Gear series?
I think I might have played 5, which I think is that open world one.
Hmm.
Are you familiar?
I didn't play 5. I played the original first two, and the first and maybe the first two on Nintendo,
Yeah, my friend was trying.
the
My
NES.
friend at work, who is like a who is very familiar with all these, he's a Metal Gear fan, was trying to like walk me through how it works. It gets confusing because to my understanding, there's a main character who has like multiple versions of himself, but they're all voiced by the same guy. That being
Yeah.
Solid Snake, obviously, and
Yeah.
the first two games are like are connected, and then the third game is a prequel, and then there's prequels,
Yeah,
sequels, and prequels,
getting
sequels,
in
and
that late in the
prequels.
series
Yeah,
is yeah. Even just 2 games in, it gets pretty confusing. Just the second game, it's just like, what is happening? I think that's why I stopped playing, because the first game, Metal Gear Solid 1, was absolutely amazing. Like, even with its dated graphics, I think if you have if you're able to put up with older looking graphics,
yeah.
it's one of the best of its time. like up
The
there
first
with
game.
like yeah, 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 up there with the classics of the era. Um, I highly recommend anyone who hasn't heard of it play it.
I think the
But
second one is the one that I hear the most buzz around.
well, the second one was I think where it started to go off the rails
Yeah.
because I mean, first of all, it didn't have the main guy from the first one. It was just some dude,
Oh, really?
and it wasn't even like, oh, it's a clone of him. It was just some completely other guy
Yeah.
who was just like, why is he even there? And then the story just like goes off the rails with like this wacky guys with abilities and stuff, and the ending was kind of interesting in a very Metal Gear kind of way. Um,
Yeah. Well,
but
as
yeah,
unfamiliar as I am, I do know that 3 is a prequel to the first two, and as a
mhm.
stranger to the franchise, the trailers look really cool. Honestly, they kind of made
Yeah,
me interested. The graphics look really nice, and it looks smooth. It looks really fun. I feel like I will look at that when it releases, when we see more of it, and that might be my introduction to the franchise. Who knows?
yeah. If I'd only learned about it till after it had come out, I was like, you know what, I'd have probably liked playing that one at the time. So, but it was so dated, and I didn't have a PS2 anymore, and I just kind of forgot about it. So
Yeah,
it's cool they're remaking it, and I'd have really wanted to see like a remake of one and two, which is weird that they're doing three. But I hear they're eventually getting those, so that's good.
yeah. Do you like the Resident
Yeah,
Evils?
yeah,
The Evil
yeah.
Residents?
I love the originals, and I've only
All of
played
them?
I've only played the first and second remake.
Oh, you played the first and second
I
remake.
haven't played like the third and fourth remake,
You haven't played the fourth
but
remake?
no,
Wow,
I really should.
you really
Um,
should. I've been replaying it
yeah, I
recently.
I bought
It's
it. I
incredible.
have it.
You did.
It's not even on my list. It's on my library, and it's just like you know
Yeah.
there for in my backlog with some other games that I really should have played. So um,
I'm a
and we have some
relatively
time
new
coming up.
fan.
So
Yeah,
oh really?
you should definitely look into it. I'm a relatively new fan. I think the first one I played was 7, which is like I said,
Oh
relatively
wow.
new. Although I think that game like 5-10 years old now. I don't know. Resident Evil 7
Hmm.
Biohazard, one of the newer ones. That was like that wasn't very action centric at all, which made me think that it was kind of like a horror. Like because that was my first game, I thought that was what all the whole franchise was like. But that game is very like a like typical horror game. Like you're unarmed for most of the time and you're running
One of
away.
the least
The least action centric. I'd say it
action
probably is.
centric
Yeah.
Resident Evil, probably, yeah, which is the weirdest introduction to the series.
Yeah. I kind of liked it
But
though.
like, yeah, if you played like six or five, that would have been some of the more action centric ones.
Yeah.
That so that would have been also a very bizarre introduction to the series.
Yeah. Well, 7.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
it's
I liked it anyway, and it had some DLC that I thought was cool as well. But and then after that, I think the next one I played well, the order, I forget the order of release, but I played Village, and I really like Village because Village is like 7 tone wise and graphics wise, but it's a lot more
mhm,
action centric. It's like you get a lot of weapons, and you get to fuck around and shoot shit a lot in Village. Village is the one where it has like the map is split into 4 corners, and each corner of the game is kind of a different genre. You go to
really.
yeah, have you not played it?
Mm-mm.
Oh well, so for example, you go to one corner of the map, and it's a doll's house because it's one of them open world ish games where you're going to collect like 4 different things basically,
Uh-huh.
and so the map is segmented into 4 different places. I think you can only go in a certain order, or maybe there's some option at some point. I don't remember, but like one corner of the map is a creepy dollhouse with a woman who's like a demon ventriloquist, and you're
Hmm.
completely unarmed in that place, and there's a really horrible sequence that I won't spoil. That anyone who's played the game knows what I'll talk about, but it was shocking. There's an extremely just disturbing, shocking, like something that I just didn't think I'd ever see in a game in that part of the map,
Hmm.
and it was very, I guess like hyped and maybe controversial when it came out. It was really fucked up. And then there's also
Huh.
like the opposite corner of the map is like you go into a factory and you just get like machine guns and grenade launchers, and there's robots that look like T800 Terminators like coming after you, and you just blow them all up. and then you have like
Nice.
you have a you have like a boss fight in like with a mech at the end in a tornado
Hmm.
or some shit. But yeah, that game was crazy. I really liked Resident Evil 8. I thought it was really good. I think people slept on it a little bit. There was some weird story
Mm,
stuff. The story was 7 and 8
that's Resident
have a
Evil for
strange
you.
story. Yeah.
They all have a strange
Yeah.
story. I think maybe like the first two are kind of okay, but it's just the further you go in the series, the more wild and wacky it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just Resident Evil for you.
I played the first a little bit. I kind of liked it though. I played the second remake. I have not
Hmm.
played the third remake because when it came out, everyone was trashing it because it was like 3 or 4 hours long. The remake anyway.
I didn't like the original three, so the
The original.
remake did not appeal to me
No.
at all. So yeah, not
And then
surprised.
but then 4 I think is my favorite when that game when the remake, sorry, I never played the original. When the remake came out the other like a few years ago, whenever it was, I think I stayed up like all night playing it, and I wasn't even expecting to like it that much, and I just spent like a pulled an all night playing it because I couldn't stop playing it. It was extremely
Yeah,
fun.
4 was really good when it came out because it was a complete change from the systems before. They used to call it tank controls,
Oh, the
where like
control change, yeah, it was a big deal,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it used to you press forward, you move forward, yeah, and left and right would turn you like you're a tank turret. So you'd just be like slowing, and
Yeah,
the whole reason for that was it gave you more urgency for your movement. You couldn't just run around. Like if you wanted to back up, you'd have to turn around and run back, turn around,
yeah.
and you really had to focus more on positioning and timing. And it was interesting. It did get annoying, but yeah, some series added like a quick turnaround and stuff like that. But four had the whole over the shoulder, just
Yeah,
third person as you've seen it, and that was and
perfect.
I think that allowed them to do way more with the game,
Yeah,
and they saw that, and it made the fights more fun and the combat more
yeah.
fun, and you're able to fight more enemies at once, so that they took advantage of that.
Ramped it up a
And
bit.
of course, yeah, and of course it mattered where you shot them now. You weren't just
Yeah,
pointing in their general direction
one of
and
the coolest
auto
things
aim
about the
or
game.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. So
yeah. I'm
you
replaying it at the
definitely need
moment.
to
I'm having a
play
great
the
time.
remake of that one.
Yeah, you do. You like,
Yeah.
I can't believe you've not played that. As anyone who's like, as a, even slightly a fan of the franchise, like that's a must
Yeah,
play.
well, I mean, I haven't played 7. Well, I did play 7. Yeah. I played it a bit on my sister's VR
On
system.
the VR.
Um yeah, that was a great title for VR.
Yeah,
Let
so
me
it's
tell you.
4.
But I didn't beat 6. I was playing it with a friend.
That's the co-op one, right?
Yeah, 5 and 6 are the co-op
Right.
ones. So, you haven't played 5?
No.
Oh, five's fun. Yeah. Yeah, you and me should play 5 together. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of my friends recommended that I should find someone to play it with. Although I've heard like mixed things about 5 and 6, so I was like, nah, like you're lying. Like
well,
I
it's such
just
a strange disembark from they're not as good as 4, but 4 is, like, so high up there that it's like that's a pretty high bar, you
yeah.
know? It's the past 4. So they're not as good as 4, but they're still Resident Evils, and they got some, you know, pretty pretty inline gameplay for the series, and the story is mockably,
Who are the characters in
wacky.
5? Leon, is
Um,
it Leon
uh,
and
no, it's Chris, the
Chris?
one from the first one,
Yeah,
and Sheva, which is new
new
to the
character.
series. Yeah, it was very controversial at the time because it took place in a lot of
Are you going to say in
I think it was
Africa?
African. Yeah,
Yes,
and a
I've
lot of
heard this
African.
controversy and it's bizarre. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the zombies were black, and they're like, "Oh, a bunch of white people shooting black people," and it's like,
yeah.
it's
Like you
like, "Hey,
can't set a
man,
game in
it's
Africa.
yeah, it's like, it's yeah, they're like, imagine if they were in Africa and everyone was white, like that'd be even worse,
That's quite a funny. I'm
But
sorry, but that's
it,
quite a funny controversy.
I
That's
mean,
so
yeah,
random.
it is. It's dumb. Like, and this is a Japanese company. I mean, just be amazed that they're even showing people who aren't white. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, true.
so, but yeah, that was dumb controversy, but yeah, fun co-op, you know, like good solid co-op game. And then 6 co-op was very wacky. Me and my friend, I don't think we beat it. We got like halfway or 2/3 in, and it was just too much for us. Um, but yeah, definitely recommend you play it with someone. That's
Yeah.
the best way to play 5.
Yeah. Does it have like a is it like all shooty? Because I feel like I watched some friends play it like when we would like when it whenever that game released when I was very young. I assume it's like very
Yeah,
action. It's like you're just shooting, running around shooting shit with your friend, right? I think that's the.
pretty
I
much.
remember
Yep.
it being in Africa as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure maybe either I played it with a friend or my friends were playing it around me when I was very young. I remember that game being quite popular.
Mhm.
Whether it was 5 or 6, I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, very action centric. They've got a few puzzles here and there, but it's
Of
not
course.
like um it's not like the other ones, and it's far more linear too.
Oh really?
Because in especially the first 3, you'll have like a main area, you'll have side areas. You open up new areas, and there's a lot of backtracking. Let me tell you, I hate backtracking.
I hate
I hate
backtracking.
that. I really hate it. Even though you're coming back to an area and there's new monsters there or
Yeah.
something, like just having to run back and forth and go because most of the time there's nothing there and it's new.
Yeah.
It's just making making time out of nothing, and it's a really really annoying thing to me. So
Padding
4
the
got rid of
game.
that.
Yeah, 4 did
Yeah,
get rid of
4
that.
was really good about it. It's much more linear. You're just moving along, and then 5 and 6 carry that along. Um, but with 5 being way more action centric. So and that's cool. And after you beat it, they have these game modes afterwards. I think it's like mercenary mode or something, where like you're playing in some of the areas you played in, and they have like waves of
They
enemies
brought that into the
coming.
4 remake.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really fun, especially with a friend. That
People were
is
very
fun.
happy
That is
with
a
that.
fun game mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some really good gameplay value in that.
S
So
Not to completely change subject, but you just reminded me of something that, like, drives me crazy. You know how you said you hate backtracking?
yeah.
This is basically the same thing. I can't remember if I mean, did I maybe I spoke stop me if I spoke about this last week. Maybe I did, but, like, something that drives me insane in a game is when have you played the Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games?
Yeah.
You might not remember
I-
because but this was really prominent in those games and isn't a lot of like though like Metroidvania style games, like as you kind of describe it. This a system or a mechanic where there are like locked doors or locked
I
passageways
knew what you were gonna mention it right when you started the
that you
before
need
you
an
talked
item
about it, I'm like,
for
yep.
that you need an
Mhm.
item for and
Yep.
then you get the
God, I
item
hate
like
that.
5 hours later in the game and they're like they really want you to go back to like these first areas and unlock these
Mm,
passageways with with like a new either you unlock like a new skill like double jumps like
yeah.
Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order are terrible for this and I love those games but this is the worst thing about them. They have like 5 different movement mechanics and every time you unlock one you have to go back through the whole game and scour
Back through the
everywhere.
level and go to the
Yeah, like
yeah.
double jump,
I hate
swinging,
those.
like a force dodge, whatever. Like so
Yeah.
many games do that, and it's so lazy because I feel like
It's just another
it's
version of
padding.
backtracking.
It's padding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is because like they could easily just have those areas in the later stages and just be fine. But no, they want you a reason to go back to these other levels, and it's no fun. It's annoying. First of all, when you come across it and you're like, I feel like I should be able to get to this. Like you don't know that you're not supposed to access it, but you're not completely sure.
yeah,
Like this door looks weirdly out of place. Like I should be able to break it or something. And
yeah,
you're trying all your spells and stuff, and you're like, but it's not breaking. What? Like you feel dumb, and you waste
yeah.
your time trying to figure it out. And then later in the game, you're like, oh, I have this one move that breaks
Well,
things that are otherwise breakable, and
some games will do you the decency of letting you know that you don't have the mechanic yet, but some
yeah.
games just will not. Like, like you will spend like. So I spent like 20 minutes being like, "This is crazy! Like I can see a chest in there, or I can see the shiny item in
Mhm.
there, and I want it, but I can't get it."
Yeah.
And then you realize, like you said, like 5 hours later in the game, that you just needed this grapple hook, or you needed this double jump, and you can get it, and it's horrible, terrible game mechanic, waste of time.
I hate it. I hate it. Right with backtracking, where it's just net bad, a net
Yeah,
bad. Because it made sense back in the day when you didn't have the storage for all these levels. So
Yeah.
they'd kind of reuse the same level. They'd make you run back, but they'd change which enemies appeared or how they'd appeared. Like it makes sense. You just make one big area and then you have them running around. But now that you can design all these other areas and you can you have the memory. And sure, it takes more to design, but I'd rather have like a shittily designed something that's near me than have to go all the way back to so and so just for this one spot. And like I'll have to have the loading screen to go there, and then I'll have to get there, and then I'll have to get back, and then the loading screen to get back. It's just like
Yeah.
I don't even think it's worth it most of the time. Like I probably skip a lot of those stuff.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys where like if I'm playing one of those games where you have to pick up all the coins after you defeat an enemy, and if I look back and in the previous room there's like one coin on the ground, I'm like, fuck it, that's staying there. I'm
Yeah.
not going back to get that one coin.
You will get the freaks that want 100% everything though. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I know people who will go back like 5 rooms just to go. Oh,
Yeah. Same.
there's one coin
Yeah.
on the ground. Let me go get it. And it's like, bro. Yeah, but
100% in games used to be like, go and do all this cool, interesting stuff. But I like
yeah,
every game nowadays, if you want 100%, they're talking about like, pick, like you said, like pick up every coin or like just
yeah. Well,
exhaust
the
everyone's dialogue.
collectibles thing
Collectibles
is
thing.
is something. Yeah, that's another mechanic that I understand. Some people love it. Like they like to find all the hidden spots, and they love to uh, discover and explore. And more power to you. But I'm the kind of person who's like, if I come across one, sure, but I'm not going to look over every nook and cranny. You got to have like a pretty good system,
Yeah.
for me to want to look for those. And most of the time, it's just they find really obscure spots to put them or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think it should count against the percentage of the game, but there you go. I think it should be a separate, like percentage of the story, percentage of the collectibles, percentage of the challenges, maybe something like that. But
You like
but yeah,
Breath of the Wild?
also in that,
Sorry,
yeah.
go.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like the Korok seeds. Like
That's sorry.
fuck those
That's
things.
why I was
Fuck
mentioning it
those
because of the
things.
Korok
Like
seeds.
it,
Just
it was
that.
yeah, it's great to find them out as you're walking. Like, oh look, this brick is missing from this, when you find each individual one, it's great.
Yeah,
But
that's what
like
they
to
were
actually
intended
go
for.
out. Yeah, but to go out and look for them, that
Insane.
seems
You're
like
an insane
mind
person.
numbing. No,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So in that same vein, people always talk about, like, oh, I've played that, but I haven't beat it, and stuff like that. Or yeah, like it becomes a thing if you've played a game or if you've beaten a game are two completely different things. And like, uh, I at one point I kind of thought that was the thing, but a long time ago, I realized you can get pretty far in a game, or even not even that far, and still have a good experience of the game. That you know you don't need to beat a game to have considered yourself to have
No.
been a fan of it or to have played it.
Yeah. I think like with the Korok seeds, a lot of developers expect that they put these things in so that you know, if you sprinkle enough stuff around the map, then you're just guaranteeing that no matter where someone goes, they'll always run into them, right? And that's what that's the purpose. Like Korok seeds are spread, so there's so many spread so widely that no matter where you go in the game, you'll always feel like you're finding Korok seeds, right? That's the point.
Yeah,
You're not intended to go and find 999. They're intended to be
yeah,
everywhere so that you're always finding them. That's the point.
yeah, and that's kind of cool. I
Yeah.
like that. Like I said, some systems are neat like that. And if you're someone who wants to find them, like
Then you absolutely
Jesus,
can.
you can
Yeah.
double your playtime in that game and look for them. Whatever, have fun. But it's great that they're just there for people. And there's enough reward that you don't need to go out and find them to get enough out of the benefit of getting them. Because just casually, you'll get enough to increase your inventory.
I think
That is
I'm,
pretty
I
helpful.
think the most I did in Breath of the Wild was I did every single shrine, and that was too much for me. There was like
I,
200
I
shrines or
did,
some shit.
yeah, I did most shrines. There's some I couldn't find,
Yeah,
and
some were really tricky. Some were like,
yeah,
yeah, there was puzzles for some, and there was also some that were just in ridiculous places.
yeah. I wanted to do as many as I could find by myself
Yeah,
without a guide.
I googled plenty. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think there was like two or three that I just couldn't figure out how to find, and then I was just like, Okay, I'll just beat the game now because I held off beating the game because that was it. I knew as the second I beat it, the end boss, the game would feel finished for me. Um, and I wouldn't feel like there was as much purpose to me to have this build up,
Yeah,
even though I unlocked them pretty early on in the run. But
I love Breath of the Wild though.
but yeah, that was a great
I
game,
won't talk
man.
bad on
I
that game.
love I love the direction they took with that.
Yeah,
That's one of the better open world games where, it really felt like you were exploring and, you
it's
know,
the most I've ever felt like that playing a game because it's just
yeah.
it's like Breath of the Wild sums it up perfectly. It's the most free experience ever. You do not have to go anywhere in any order. You can go absolutely any direction.
Yeah. Yeah. A definite
It's an
in the
all-time
vein of,
classic.
of Zelda. Yeah, because that's kind of it was Miyamoto who made it, right?
Yes.
That was kind of his inspiration for making the first one. He'd love to explore as a kid, and he wanted to make a game that let you just go out and explore,
Yeah.
and even though there was some linearity to the dungeons, you could just go anywhere in the map,
Yeah.
or most places on the map, and then you just come across things, and that it feels like one of the purest Zelda games in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oof, I played that game for
definitely,
so long on my first playthrough. Oof. Oof, it was cool.
yeah,
You would always find
it
shit. You'd
was.
find you'd find cool shit all the time. You'd walk everywhere and you'd be like, I'm just, like
Everywhere had it rewards exploration, which is great. Because let me tell you what
more than
sucks
anything.
about some games. You'll go off the beaten path and there's just nothing, empty wilderness,
Yeah.
or like you'll try to explore something and you come across the invisible wall. It's like, nope, not for
Ooh,
you.
don't
You know, you know,
don't go there. I hate the invisible wall.
yeah.
It's my arch nemesis.
Yeah. There's like two side there's like two versions. There's the invisible wall, which is like um takes many forms. I think my favorite form is like there's like a small little pile of rubble, like knee-high rubble, and it's blocking your path. And you're
Yeah.
jumping over, platforms that are like higher than your head, but this little
Yeah.
wooden fence that barely comes to your knees, and you're like, "Oh, I cannot access this," you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think I have so many screenshots in my Steam of, like, unsurpassable barriers. And
Did you play
and, like, some
sorry, go ahead.
what's that? Oh, and some of them were, like, giant iron bars with big enough holes for you to just walk through,
Yeah.
and the game won't even let
But
you
you're
in.
locked in.
Yeah.
Did you play Black
Oh,
Myth Wukong?
no.
That game was infamous for having really bad examples of that because the
Mm,
rule for the majority of the game is that like some of the it works like any other like Souls game where you teleport to like your little incense, which is like a bonfire from Dark Souls, and then you go and explore the whole area. And there's a few of the areas are I would call them open world. Like they were very open. You could go in any which direction. So there was huge fields and on like deserts in some areas and ice. But then, and they were pretty good with walls actually being like a an obstacle that your character wouldn't be able to get over. Right? It was clear, but it was really
mm,
infamously bad for just having like there'd just be like literally a perfect archway made out of rocks, which God knows how it got left in the game and didn't get like filled in, but you wouldn't be able to walk through it, and it would happen all the time. And
mm.
it was a big thing when the game came out because it was really funny how uh how absurd some of the invisible walls were. There was just no obstruction sometimes, even though there's meant to be because like throughout the rest of the game there always is. But then sometimes there would just be like a river that you can't walk on, or like a huge cave opening, or like a hole in the wall, and you wouldn't be able to fit through it. Invisible
Yeah.
walls are a funny thing. Kill barriers are funny as well. Like like when sometimes games get creative with it, like Halo, where if you went outside
Yeah.
the map, you'd get shot, or like you'd hit a landmine, or you get eaten by a worm or some shit. It's
I think
funny
Helldivers was one of the better examples of that,
where you get mutinied.
where yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you just have bombs, and to a degree you can actually use it to your advantage,
to a
but
degree.
but yeah, no, that was my favorite implement because it actually is open. Just but don't go there.
Don't go there,
Um,
or you're a
I
deserter.
actually, and I think maybe my other favorite would be Tribes, which when you go out of the bounds of the map. Um, Okay, that was my camera. Um, where when you go out of the bounds of the map, there's just more map. You can't. It was a capture the flag game,
Yeah.
and you can't take the flag out of bounds of the map. But if you go off the map, there's just more map and more map, and like I remember just going and saying, "How far does it go?"
What?
And I was going like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or something. Like there's just it almost goes on, and it's just so much, and it was crazy. Um, but it's just and there's no like I said, there's no barrier. It's only if you have the flag, but otherwise you can just keep going. And there is a little bit of gameplay impact to that, which is when you can build up speed by going down certain slopes and
Yeah.
stuff. So you could actually go out the map, build some speed up, go into the map, and you're just like rocketing through
That's
and
pretty
stuff.
cool. That's
So
actually kind of that works out pretty well. That's kind of like a skill gap. Like games before kill barriers and things like that were interesting. Like any like Xbox original Xbox game and stuff like Halo games where you could just as long as you landed a grenade, like a pretty easy grenade jump, right, you could just climb on top of like skyscrapers and just go
mhm.
absolutely anywhere. It was so funny. Like you know, people used to just hang out, like finding ways to get out of all the multiplayer maps and finding ways to get out of all the campaign missions as well. It's a funny time.
It's always fun to find ways you're not supposed to be in.
Yeah.
Play areas you're not supposed to be. Yeah, I always enjoy finding those kind of parts in games or ways to break animations. And just that's kind of something that I find myself doing involuntarily,
Yeah.
like just because I enjoy how much, just how much it's because it's 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 funny in a way that isn't like purposely funny. Like I just like especially with animations when you cancel them out with other animations and you can just sit there and spam it. Like I love that in Monster Hunter when they have the emotes.
Yeah.
What me and my friends do is we'll just spam the emotes, and the characters just kind of jerk in these very,
Yeah.
very hilarious ways. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
Speaking of broken games and animation glitches and dead open worlds and etc., shall we talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2?
Uh-oh.
Nah, that was I'm exaggerating. It's kind of funny because a couple of days ago I was intending to come into this and like tear Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 a new one because one weekday earlier this week I played it for like a couple of hours or like 3 hours or something, like the prologue and a couple of hours after the prologue. The game is very long and things move very slowly, which is going to be polarizing for some people. But
Mhm.
and I was a little bit displeased. I felt like the introduction was very generic. There was a lot of they had the whole, like scripted, like you're locked in motion opening sequence and lots of dialogue and lots of I forget the term, but when you're not in control of your character, when you're on rails, there was a lot of on
Mhm.
rails stuff at the beginning, and there was
Mhm.
a lot of there were sequences of like the rudimentary like combat training, which was fine because the game does have very unique combat and I like it. And then there was a section where, as happens in most open world games, you go on like a little mission and you get overconfident and you get taken out and then you get set back to to square one. That happens at the beginning of like a lot of open world games where you are hit with something really bad at the beginning and you have to start over and build your way up, and that's where the tutorial comes in, where you're learning things from scratch. So you're picked
Mhm.
up by like an old lady, and she rescues you, and you have to like for like an hour, you have to walk around like collecting plants and shit, and you have to bury a dead body, and you have to do some alchemy. And I was like, in terms of production and effort and attention to detail, this is cool, but I am really struggling right now. And as well as that gameplay kind of disappointing me a little bit early on, I encountered quite a few technical issues, which I feel like the technical angle toward the game it has been very positive, at least from what I've seen anyway. I think people are glazing the game a lot, and I think it might be getting I don't know if I don't know if it's entirely deserved because I do think there's some issues going on technically. Don't get me wrong, the first game was extremely janky, and this game is way better. Is like a a huge step up from the first game. It looks way better.
Mm.
It's there's less glitches. The whole production value is just it's like 3 times better than the first game. But for a £60 full price game, there's still notable things in there. That are a little bit like it's worth mentioning. Like every like 5 minutes or so, there'd be like an animation glitch in a cutscene, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a little bit jarring. Like people's heads twisting and arms twisting and stuff. Like just very basic glitches. Also, my girlfriend was playing it alongside me using my game share, and within the first like 10 minutes of her game, she was soft locked. She had a game breaking glitch within the first like 5 or 10 minutes of playing the game, and I was like, oh, like that's
Did she have like a restore point or something, or save or?
She had a save, yeah, but she reached a point where like a critical prompt was just not appearing, and we were trying to fix it, and it turned out it was just bugged, which was kind of shocking, especially like at the very beginning of a game that's getting like 10 out of 10 reviews across the board. I was like, okay, this is a little bit.
I mean, that's a bug I've seen in just about, you know, a game from just about any company.
Yeah.
Like I'll come across something where like, man, I just cannot do this quest, and I'll look it up online, and it's like a known bug that
Yeah.
if so and so happens and stuff. And most of the time, there's like a way to rectify it.
Yeah, I think it was the fact that it was right off the bat of the game. It set a pretty bad tone, at least for my girlfriend, because it was like, oh, this game is kind of buggy. Like this game's kind of just has a little bit of a janky feel to it. But anyway, fast forwarding, the day after or a couple of days after, I went back and I sat down for a little bit longer and played it some more post the prologue, and I had a really good time. So I said I was going to come on here and tear it a new one, but honestly I think it's grown on me quite a lot, and I kind of really want to play it some more.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, the story is, although I like barely scratched the surface of the story, it's incredibly endearing. You play as the I guess kind of the personal bodyguard / muscle of a really stuck up little prince boy who is just rude and arrogant, and he refuses to work, and he's rude to some people, but he kind of likes you because I guess in the context of the story, I don't remember the story of the first game. I think these may be characters from the first game. I don't know. Played it a long time ago. I'm not very long, but you and him go way back. So you two are friendly together, and you basically have to keep him on a leash and look after him, I guess. And you have to go on missions together. And the dialogue and all the dialogue and interactions between the two of them is just genuinely fantastic. Like the voice acting feels like Hollywood, like genuinely Hollywood voice acting. It's incredible to listen to. It comes at like the cutscenes look nice and the voice acting is Hollywood standard. So it all comes across like you're watching a movie. Is basically what I'm trying to say. It's incredible. That, and
interesting.
I'm really into that kind of, the kind of 1500s era, so the 15th century era, that kind of stuff. And that game is like porn, if you're interested in that. Honestly, it's like everything is so on point. The attention to detail from the castles to the farms to the interior buildings, taverns, blacksmiths, everything is incredibly well made. Like the people who made the game really cared about it. It looks
nice.
The attention to detail is fantastic. I think graphically the game looks a little bit flat sometimes. Maybe at certain times of the day, there's times where it looks nice and times where it looks good. Some people are acting like it's the best looking game ever. It's
now,
really
to be
not.
fair, are you running on max settings?
I'm on PS5. That's what I was about to say. This is difficult for me to talk about because I am on PS5. Although I think it doesn't support ray tracing or anything on PC.
Yeah, I mean it is on the console, so there could be some.
There is definitely a downgrade. Like I'm sure
there
of it.
Could be some compromise to that.
Yeah.
A lot more games on PC are starting to have way better graphics
than the console
in the maximum settings than the console. And yeah, and like you said, one of the things is ray tracing. Yeah, but just in general, like the maximum
it's buffed up a little bit.
The maximum
always will be
shaders, post-processing, textures generally are better than consoles because consoles are locked in a
the current generation of console is coming to
they're locked into a period of time.
Yeah.
um, a single moment of time for specs. And I could go on about that about the consoles and stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd say it probably looks better on
It
PC,
absolutely will look better on
and
PC. I just
yeah, and that could be a reason.
yeah, no, it is. I absolutely am aware of that. But as it's the only version I've seen on my PS5, compared to other games that I've also played on PS5, I don't think it looks up to standard with like the current with like the current stat like the the current level of the
Hmm.
graphics of some games. But it still looked very good. Like I'm not trying to like completely shit on it. It looks very good. But I think a lot of people are out there acting like it's the best looking console game so far. I think it looks good, but there's something kind of flat about the game. I think that like the reflections are kind of bad. So if you're looking at water, sometimes it's strange to look at. There's a little bit of a lack of atmospheric effects going on. Like there's
Hmm.
aside from certain parts of the day and certain weathers, do you kind of understand what I'm saying? Like everything looks a little bit flat. Like there's no particles sometimes. Like things
Hmm.
are just like baked in.
Yeah.
I'm really nitpicking at that point though. I kind of wanted to say that because I feel like I'd be lying if I said it's one of the best looking things I've seen because, yeah, it isn't, but it looks
Mm.
good nonetheless.
Okay.
But like I said, the most recent time I played it, I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to be playing it more now, uh, because the stories hooked me a little bit, and just the visuals, the theme, the aura, I'm really interested in. So it's definitely got me there, and I'll continue playing it.
Yeah, I'll give it a look into.
I I kind of wanted to talk about Destiny 2, but have you played Destiny or Destiny 2?
I've played Destiny 1, maybe.
I think that one was not on PC.
Yeah. What? Wait, Destiny 1 wasn't on PC?
No, so that's what. So I think you probably played 2.
Oh, then yeah, it must have been too. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, okay. It
it's
shows
been out. It's been
how
around
often I
since
played it.
2017. Second
Oh,
game.
okay, yeah, yeah. I played a bit of a Destiny title that I don't recall much of. It just didn't seem like much of my jam.
You don't
But
like those
yeah, I know
grind
of
games.
it, and I know generally, yeah.
Yeah,
Just wasn't really my thing.
yeah. It
I
kind of
heard
is my
I heard.
thing, and I've had a lot of
Oh yeah.
I've had a lot. I probably have like a combined 1,000 hours in Destiny 2 between like because that game kind of existed in phases. It's one of those games that
Mhm.
has huge DLC cycles. So I've gone back to it here and there every year or so. It usually comes
Nice.
around. Um, I really like it. I mean, I really like it to an extent. I think in terms of like a looter shooter, uh, it's probably my favorite because well, I'm a really big Halo fan, and it's kind of ostensibly made by the original Halo development team. At least it was
Mhm.
originally envisioned by them before everyone
Yeah.
left. So it definitely has like the Halo DNA,
Mhm.
and you can feel that it's been through a lot of different looks and a lot of different themes because it is like a live service game. They have a lot of crazy stuff going in there, but but from back in the day, it was always a kind of that future militaristic Halo vibe, and that was why I loved it so much. I played the first one a ton in school
Nice.
on the PS4, and I played the second one a lot on PC. They had a Star Wars crossover,
Hmm.
which is crazy because I didn't like Destiny 2 is not a very big game, I don't think, like in terms of like popular. But
I mean, it's not small. Um, I mean, sure, it's not absolutely massive, but I think it's big enough that I could see it, reaching that
yeah,
level.
I guess it makes sense.
Mhm.
I don't know, like the era of crossovers is an interesting one, don't you think? There's a lot of games are and just IPs in general like to cross over with each other nowadays, and it makes me wish there was more for things that I like, but
Mhm.
that's okay. Like for example, the Secret Level TV show. I don't know if have you seen any of it. I know you know of it,
Mm-mm. I know
but
of it. Yeah.
the Microsoft, who are up to a lot lately, but Microsoft denied the opportunity to have an episode of Secret Level containing Master Chief and Doomslayer in the same
Aw.
episode together, and it came out recently that it was pitched to Microsoft and they said no for unknown reasons,
Aw.
and that would
That's
have been
lame.
so cool.
Yeah. I mean, you assume it would be cool, but We
little
don't.
bit. Yeah, we don't.
We don't know. We don't
Yeah.
know what they'd have done with them.
The rest of
So,
Secret Level is very good though. So
I mean, I thought, anything with Master Chief was immediately badass because it's Halo.
well,
But then the
you mustn't have
TV
played.
series came out, and it
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
oh my, you
Oh
really
no,
can't
no.
fuck this up.
Did you watch
So
much of the TV show?
I watched zero of the TV show. I've heard absolute
Oh,
horror stories
yeah.
from it. I've heard of, descriptions of scenes that were just like absolutely terrible. I did see some clips of some action scenes and stuff, and nothing, absolutely nothing I've seen of it looked at all entertaining. It looked like some low budget, made for TV crap. Anything I've seen of it,
Some of the fight
and
scenes, in its defense, some of the fight scenes are okay, but if anything, that's the absolute most it has going for it. Everything in it is complete. Everything else in it is complete and utter horseshit. Oh, your cat is just staring you down. That's
he
kind of
does
funny.
if I just hit here, he'll just look at me.
There's an infamous scene from the first season where Master Chief has sex with a Covenant prisoner of war.
Yep. Yeah, I heard about that, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What the?
I think everyone
fuck
heard
was
about that one.
about?"
Yeah.
I mean, the second I heard that he takes his helmet off, I'm like, "Well, rip."
He loses
know.
the helmet in the first episode of the show.
Yeah, yeah. How terrible is that? That's not Master Chief to me. Master Chief is some mysterious guy
Yeah.
who's like strong as fuck. Nobody knows what he looks like. They just know he's badass. It takes the mystery out of it.
Too
It's
right.
kind of like
Too right.
like I remember in the new Star Wars one, was it the first new one? I don't know. They all kind of mushed together to me because I only seen the 7 and 8.
You're going to talk
Yeah, it
about
must have
Kylo
been
Ren?
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
When like they build this huge persona of him and how strong, like he stops,
Yeah.
a blaster shot in the air, like, and he's got this lightsaber that's got these what were they call them, hilts?
That was a
or
cool scene.
whatever.
The first scene of that movie is cool.
Yeah, that like they did a pretty good job of building him up as some badass, with anger issues and stuff or whatnot. And then like he takes off the helmet and he's just some dude now. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't matter who it was. Now it's just some dude.
And he's very whiny.
Like
He's very whiny.
like
and screamy.
Vader. Yeah, Vader was. I don't even have to tell you about Vader. Everyone knows about it, but I'll just, he didn't take his helmet off till the very last
It's the very
part
last
of
thing
the
he
last
does.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right before he dies.
Your cat is determined to
and
get in the webcam.
and he's doing a good job of it.
He is, yeah.
And it's like, so he has this. They preserve that for so much, and they used that reveal as a part of a story, and like they had some oomph to it,
Yeah.
Whereas in the new trilogy, it just kind of feels like a wet fart, like
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, oh wow, he's so awesome. And then it takes off the helmet. It's like, oh, he's just
I think
some normal
they're
dude.
probably worried about doing
No.
the whole Vader thing again. They definitely wanted him to be his own thing. He's kind of like he's like a wannabe Vader.
Yeah. Heaven forbid they rehash anything that the original
That was
trilogy
good.
did in their new series. Like, a giant space station that kills planets with a single weakness that they could target with a ragtag group,
Mhm.
led by someone with a mysterious power from a desert planet. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, I could go on about the new
Star Wars.
trilogy,
Yeah.
but,
Star Wars could
let's-
be a
let's-
Star Wars could be a
yeah,
10-hour
let's-
special. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Star Wars.
Let's just go on.
Yeah. Fuck
So,
Star Wars. Fuck Star Wars. What do you want to get to next?
You know much about the new 5000 series of NVIDIA cards?
I do a little bit, but I can guarantee you know more. So I was hoping you could help me here because I kind of want one. But I looked up some benchmarks. And I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna completely tell me I'm wrong here, but I wasn't that impressed with the benchmarks.
Yeah, the thing. Well,
5080 specifically. I watched a 5080 versus a.
mhm.
Sorry, just to clarify, I don't know if we even said it. I am talking about the new RTX, the Nvidia's new RTX 50 series.
Yeah.
Graphics cards. I kind of was interested in maybe getting a 5080. I looked at some benchmarks, and it doesn't seem to massively outperform the 4080. But is there another difference that I'm missing? Is it cheaper?
But like it's like half the price of a 4080.
Really?
So yeah, I mean they are very competitively priced.
That's insane.
Will you be able to get one at that price?
That's
Is
another
a completely
question.
different question.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, there's terrible shortages. I really wanted to grab a 5090, but damned if I could. Bots ate them up,
Yeah.
unsurprisingly. So, there's
You
another
want that
topic I can go on
5090?
about, freaking bot scalpers and all that.
Oh, it's
But
horrendous.
but yeah, so a lot of what Nvidia showed off as benchmarks was using the DLSS, and they showed the massive improvements, but people see the raw non-DLSS improvements of 25% or something like that, and they're like, what is this crap? It's like generation to generation, 25% leap isn't bad. Like if you're expecting like a twofold increase with every generation, you're not going to get that. This seems pretty in line with, because I've been getting video cards since the first video cards came out. I've seen them. Yeah, yeah. I had one of the original GeForce cards, and before that I had one of the first couple ATI cards, and before that I had a
Wow.
Matrox Mystique. At
What
one
the
point I
fuck is
had the
that?
3DFX.
Sounds like an ancient relic from a long
It
forgotten
is a very
planet.
ancient relic.
Yeah.
I had like 3DFX cards that I'd run in Sly setups. Like I've had so many graphics cards there. So I know about a bit about generation to generation improvement, and 25% is nothing to scoff at.
No, absolutely
And
not.
yeah, and their big selling point is the DLSS, the new version of the DLSS that they're throwing in there that can give you these better frames. And people are talking about fake frames and stuff like that, but that's the frame generation, which just generates between the frames. Which, to be fair, they're not actual fully new frames. They're just interpolated from existing frames,
Very
which is
interesting.
great if you're playing a game where um, you're not needing the most up to date information. You're not playing like a Twitch shooter or something like that. If you're just playing like an RPG or something, and you're struggling to get 60 frames, throw that up and you'll get 70 or 80 or whatever. But the thing is, if you're just it's optional. You can turn it on or off. But the DLSS, the upscaling is huge. If you're struggling to run a game at a set resolution, you just turn on DLSS and it renders it at a little lower resolution and upscales it with pretty good quality. Like there's some artifact here and there, but considering what you're able to run at, like 4K with the max settings,
Yeah. DLSS was a
HDR turned
huge
on.
deal. I remember that
Yeah,
DLSS going around
yeah.
was
So
very
they've done
interesting.
a lot of they've done a lot with DLSS, and the ray casting is much improved, but people don't give a fuck about that. But
No.
that's and let me get into that, because
Yeah.
for the longest time I always remember seeing the animated, like CGI, cartoons and videos and
Mhm.
movies and stuff like that. It's like, this looks so amazing. And then you play your video games at home with your video card and like, why can't it look like that?
Mhm.
Why does it look so different? And it's because they've used ray tracing. They use, and I don't know if you're familiar with ray tracing,
I
but
am.
like yeah, just to explain to people out there, they trace the rays of light as they would behave. They're kind of trying to emulate light as it bounces, and so the lighting, it gives a sort of
In a
more
live
realism
scenario,
to it.
in a live
Yeah,
context.
right. They'll simulate how a light behaves, and so the lighting looks, and just the lighting itself can make a scene really really
It's
pop.
insane how
So
much difference it makes. It is
yeah,
you think that like lighting is one piece of the puzzle, and it definitely is to an extent, but
mm,
good ray tracing compared to just kind of rudimentary baked in lighting is an absolute night and day difference. It's a game
yeah.
changer.
Yeah, it's great, and it's what CGI film has been using since what, like the 80s
Yeah.
or something, forever. And but we've been using rasterized graphics
Mhm.
in video games for forever. And so now that we're finally getting this cinema quality stuff, you know, And people are like, "Oh, it's just uses a lot of resources, and it doesn't look that much better." It's like it's because they haven't programmed as much for it, and it's not as optimized as rastering has been forever. Once we start getting these cards that you can just turn this stuff on, and once more games feature all this stuff, like a lot of times they only have raycasted shadows or only reflections. But when you get like the shadows, the reflections, the lighting, like I remember Cyberpunk was the first game I saw, and I was like, "Wow, this looks good." You
Yeah,
know,
Cyberpunk is a
and
standout example.
yeah, like it really adds a lot of depth to the game, and it really is the future of rendering, because it is the next step to rendering. This
It
isn't
literally
some
is. It's
bullshit.
not. It's already a
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
it's not some unproven technology that's hyped up. Like this is literally what professional 3D rendering uses, and now we're getting it in real time on our
Yeah.
systems, on our homes. Like this is pretty big. So people talking shit about ray tracing, like I feel like they don't understand just how much of an improvement this could be. So there's a lot of performance improvement in ray tracing, and
I think you might
and
be
of
the
course
biggest ray tracing advocator in the world.
not as much as Nvidia
Advocate, I should
apparently.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. But also they put a lot more neural processing for like AI stuff, um because they're finding more uses for that. And
AI is
yeah,
basically just
just the
a tool
value.
to simplify and reduce the load on all of these methods.
Yeah, and there was some AI method they had found out for increasing the amount of memory you could store on the card itself, like some storage method that was able to like half the number of VRAM textures could make up.
Yeah.
They're creating all these different uses for it, like just like DLSS and stuff. So um, so it'll be interesting to see what. So I think that's the thing, is that they focused a lot on DLSS, ray tracing, the neural networks, and some competitive pricing. So the raw performance over the previous generation isn't as big as, like, say, from the 2000 to the 3000 series, but still, considering all the extra features you get and um, the very aggressive pricing they're doing,
The pricing is the
where you
biggest
could
deal to
get
me, I think,
yeah,
over
you could get
performance.
a 5080 for, um, less than half of what a 4090 could be with similar performance. So the pricing is very competitive compared to their previous generation.
Yeah,
So I think that's pretty big.
that's the biggest
And
deal for me. I think that's um that would win a price. I think is going to win people over more than any of the other factors, more than the features, more than the raw performance
yeah,
increase. I think that
so
the
so I
price.
don't I don't see I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a great series because, like, I could go on about the 2000 series and how terrible. Now that was terrible generational improvement. They really didn't add much to the features.
Was
The
that not the
price
first
was
ray tracing card? Because it was
uh
GTX. They went from GTX 1080 to RTX 2080, but I think that was probably very rudimentary ray tracing. I think the performance hit was
mm,
huge.
I think it may have been, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing.
I'm trying to
But for
remember.
raw improvement, you meant sorry for
Yeah. Yeah.
raw performance.
Yeah. So generally, yeah, I think they're a pretty good series, and I can't wait to get my hands on one, but
Yeah, I need a. I think I currently have a
probably
3070 Ti, so I could
yeah.
maybe soon upgrade. And the 50
Mm,
series seems like a good place to do so. Although
yep.
the chances of me getting one are looking slim.
You and
So
me both, brother.
maybe forget it. If any one of us two is going to get one, it's going to be you.
No, we'll see. Yeah, eventually. But yeah, hopefully they do better, but just out the gate they were talking about supply issues.
Yeah.
And then
I
if my
expect it.
my country goes forward with the tariffs that
We're
we've
in
been
trouble.
threatening everyone and their mother with, yeah, it could get even worse. So we'll see.
Pulling it back a little bit, you mentioned the frame generation. This is something that I haven't really. I don't think since frame generation's been a thing, I haven't really done much played many PC games. What is frame generation?
So you know how DLSS works, right?
Yes, it's a decreased resolution with AI upscaling or some form of upscaling. Sorry.
Right, right. It renders at a lower base resolution than what you're currently viewing, and then it uses neural networks to kind of predict what the pixel should look like to make. Um, so you have the performance of a lower resolution with the visuals of native high
A
resolution.
genius idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's brilliant, and it works great too.
It's always been good for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what frame generation does is it'll take a frame and it'll try to predict what will happen, the frame that comes after that. Uh, if I could explain it in a way, you ever watch those TVs where they have the interpolated frames where it makes the content run at like double the frame rate and you get that soap opera effect?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that where it's making frames between existing frames that don't
That
exist.
don't exist.
Yeah,
I
to
think that's
help
just
make
called
it look.
interpolation, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, to make it look so yeah, it's literally a form of interpolation.
Yeah.
So people who have these TVs at their homes, who probably have this feature on or don't even know it,
Yeah.
are talking shit about this feature that's literally the same thing.
Yeah.
Only it uses neural networks to help
Which is probably better.
to make it look more accurate. Because if you're familiar enough with the TV form, and I had this software on my system, SVP, I think it's called, where it's the PC version of that, and it'll make in betweens, and it helps smoothen out video and stuff. Sometimes when I make a video, I want to extend a scene or something, but if you slow it down, it gets choppy. So if I double the frame rate, then I can slow it down, and then I can.
Not choppy.
So I use it for stuff like that. But essentially it's the same thing, and it just makes stuff in the middle. And the part about it is the more motion it is, the harder it is to predict what happens. When
Yeah.
when there's very low motion, there's not a whole lot of points on the scene that change from point to point. But when something is spinning or rotating or moving really fast with motion blur, it doesn't understand the concept of the 3D volume. It's just looking at a 2D image and trying to guess. So the
Maybe
more
one day.
motion is, the more, yeah, the more motion there is, the more artifact you get. So what the neural networks help with is they understand the dimensionality of it, so they can reduce that artifacting from the motion, and so it can look more natural when you put it in something like a video game with so much turning cameras, fast moving objects, effects that just flicker on and off for a couple frames, stuff like that. So it's generally that for PC games,
I hear
if
it
that makes sense.
causes input lag.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when they're generated, they they're not like reflective of your input because they didn't work based on your input. They're just being inserted between other frames, you know.
Yeah.
So they're not responding to your input. So it's an extra frame of input delay. But the thing is, if you're only able to have, let's say the frame rate you can only push is 40 frames per second. You turn this feature on and you get 60 frames per second. Well, that's 20 frames that your input isn't being counted in.
So it will feel sluggish, right?
So it will feel sluggish, but you're still getting 40 frames of input.
Yeah.
So whether you're running at 40 frames or 40 plus 20, you're still getting 40 frames of input.
Yeah.
There's just 20 frames of non-input, which can seem odd because it's inconsistent, kind of like frame rate spikes or something like that.
Mhm.
You know, so it's not adding input delay as much as it's giving you a sense of different, you know. So it could throw off some people for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think
But
of it like that. Because
it's
that
not
does make
like
sense what you said
yeah,
about the fake frames, because obviously the fake frames won't count your input like the mouse movement
right.
or anything. So yeah, that makes perfect
Right.
sense.
It's just predicting based on what you see.
Yeah.
Although there is work on neural networks that can take your input and into consideration when generating the frame. But uh, there is there's a Minecraft like that was, I don't know if you've heard about it. That someone had a version of Minecraft that was fully run in AI. Have you
Yeah,
heard
I've
of
seen
this?
it, but it just looked
Yeah,
very
yeah. It
bizarre.
runs in a browser. It runs in a browser, and I
Really.
tried it out for a while. It's wild.
Really?
It's
I might have to
absolutely
try this
wild.
after we finish recording.
It's
I thought that was a mod
it's
someone
a
made or something.
oh no. It's just completely made in AI, so it has no concept of consistency or
No.
anything,
I've seen the
and
videos, they're really
it's like a
funny.
fever dream,
It is like
dude.
a fever
It's
dream. It's
wild.
like
It's
cave,
wild.
mushrooms, trees,
You'll look at
water.
something, just as you're staring at something, it'll slowly merge, and if you turn away and turn back, it's something
It's
completely
gone.
different.
Yeah, it's
There
really
there
funny
yeah.
though, and it's also
It's like it's like a dream.
it's in a
It's so
strange way
wild.
it's impressive though, because it is still making
Mhm.
things that look like Minecraft. Like
And
even though it doesn't understand the concept of Minecraft, it's making
right,
things that look like Minecraft.
and what it's doing is it's learned what Minecraft is based on inputs, which is why you could do inputs and your character will move and jump and swing and open inventory and stuff, but it just doesn't understand, much of the implications of that,
Mhm.
but so I feel like there could be a way that they could eventually take some of that into consideration, but in the end, it's a feature that you can turn
I mean,
off,
a couple of years ago we
you
couldn't
know?
get AI with like AI images were rough around the edges, and now we have partially playable AI games. So
I mean, we have like photorealistic stuff that's happening, and now we're getting video that's coming
video,
out. And video used to be laughably bad, but now it's actually getting pretty good.
it's pretty good.
And
Yeah, like I said last week, queso and
it's
Waffle House.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna start getting crazier too. So, um, and speaking of AI, the AI community wasn't too happy about the 5000 series because a
Really?
huge
Why?
thing, yeah, because it has only 32 gigabytes of VRAM, which I know, um, is funny because I had the 4090 with 24 gigs of VRAM, and I thought that was
That's insane.
a pretty insane amount. But then you learn about how these people are running like uh, these AI models, and they're using like the full memory. And a lot of these, like the industrial versions of these cards, have like 96 gigabytes and stuff. So
Crazy to
they
think
weren't very
about.
happy with only
Crazy to
getting
think
32.
about.
They're expecting like something way more.
I feel
So
like
which is kind of funny because like man, that seems like such an absurd amount of
at that point
VRAM.
you need to be buying an industrial card, surely.
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with you, but on the other hand,
You want the
the
card
actual
itself.
Nvidia cards are like 10 to 30,000. They're insane like priced.
That's
So I
unbelievable.
could kind of see how they mean like that, and I remember someone saying something like AMD or Intel, who had just recently started getting in with their what's it, the Battle Mage GPUs that they came out with that are suddenly successful because they're so competitive.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Um, so ATI or NVIDIA, or I mean ATI or Intel could probably get a pretty big user base from having a card with a lot of VRAM that caters to a lot of these people who want VRAM, a lot of VRAM on their GPU for whatever non-graphical reasons,
Yeah.
be it AI or just farm rendering or whatever. Because apparently there's a pretty big demand for that for people who want it, but don't want to have to pay the prices for these absurd, you know, um, like data center style, cards. So, but yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. It's interesting because that is kind of like a like you said, it would have to be the best of both worlds because the actual card of an RTX 50 series is designed for your average, your average mass market PC gamer. So
Yeah.
pushing that they're pushing 32 gigabytes of VRAM for that market is ridiculous. That is
Yes.
ridiculous. So that's probably not
Yeah.
happening soon
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think they're probably just going to keep it at 32.
Because imagine if it was way more expensive because they had like 60 gigabytes of VRAM that no gamer in their wildest dreams is going to use.
Yeah, it would be more expensive. A, because it's very fast memory that isn't it. They don't just stick DDR5 on it. It's a very fast kind of. Um, I forget what they're on now, but it's like GDDR or something like
GDDR6,
that.
maybe.
I I I forget.
Guessing.
Um, but yeah, it's very fast memory, and to double that, not only would it add to the price of the card just for the parts, but you'd have a smaller market for the card. It'd be a more specialized kind of card. Um, so you'd be they'd have a limited set, so they wouldn't there'd be a limitation for how many they could make because they know there wouldn't be as much demand for this, and it there'd be more on top of that because of how rare it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it just doesn't seem like a very good price wise, like for them to go after.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Mm.
we covered the RTX 50 series quite thoroughly. Do you want to get back to some more games? Because there's still a few games that I was hoping to talk about today.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of. Well, Dune Awakening. Have you seen much about that game? Because
Oh yeah,
it popped on my radar recently, and I think it looks really good. Although I've heard mixed things, but I'll get into it in a bit.
yeah, yeah. I think it was a couple years ago, probably 2018, 19, something like that. I started reading the Dune books,
Yeah,
and it was I really liked the world building they had.
it's
And
apparently
so
extremely
for a
good.
game to take place in that world, back then, if you told me, I'd have been like, "Yeah, that sounds good." But after seeing the Dune movies and seeing how well they translated that, which is a very hard thing to do. I don't know if you read the books.
No, I haven't
Um,
seen the movies either.
it is it is a very very hard book to transfer to film, which is why it's actually from the I want to say 50s and 60s. It actually predates Star Wars, and a lot of Star Wars took inspiration from
Yeah,
Dune.
I've heard
This
that.
is this is how old it is and how inspirational it's been.
Yeah,
And so it's just this great series, and to see them again do so well with the film with their world, and now this game comes out in the same kind of visual aesthetic. It just at that's got me hyped. But
yeah.
seeing how it looks and it's pretty great. I'm not I'm not super hyped about the survival aspect of the game. Um,
Oh, really?
but
That's kind
that's
of what
really
intrigued me.
but it's really in line with what Dune was, as it takes place on Arrakis. Um,
That's probably why they went
especially
down
with
that route.
Yeah, especially with the first book. So it's understandable, and the company who's making it worked on a survival game, Conan
Conan
Exiles.
Exiles, which is
Yeah, so they have experience with a survival game.
interesting
So
because like you said, Dune is such a huge and very old franchise and very successful, and
yeah,
the movies have been extremely successful. So
yeah,
to make a game and to partner with the developers of Conan Exiles is strange to
it
me, but
is
I
it
don't
is
know the context. I don't know
strange.
the context surrounding any of this. So there could be there could be stuff going on that I don't know about, but that is a it's either that's either a very people who really understood the games industry and really made that select choice. I thought that's probably
Yeah,
what it is, but it's just it's like if Star Wars hired I don't I don't know. It's like if Star Wars hired some indie developer to create a game. It would just
well, I mean,
seems weird.
it there's some, yeah, there's some strangeness to it.
There's a merit to it though.
But like I said, the survival aspect is in line with the book.
Yeah.
So I could see how they make that fit.
Yeah.
Um, so it's definitely related, but just the fact that they're taking this company that's had, you know, an existing game that did well, because so many of these movie to games or book to games, they just do no name companies. It's either they do no name companies that, don't know what they're doing, or they take these AAA companies that just are only focused on making a dollar off of it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I feel like it's good middle ground
I think it is
where
too.
if
I
an
think it's
accomplished company that isn't tiny, isn't huge, I
hmm
feel like they'll put some love into it.
yeah.
Um, and so
I think
it
it was
it
either
it could
accidentally a very a surprisingly well made, a surprisingly smart decision, either accidentally or most likely deliberately, because they're familiar with Conan Exiles, and like you said,
right,
it
because if it
it
was an
fits
indie
what they
company,
it fits the vibe.
yeah, yeah, like a small company wouldn't have the resources to
No,
make the kind of game that it deserves to make,
no,
and too big of a company, I think they wouldn't be able to see the forest full of trees. They
absolutely,
wouldn't be able to understand enough about it, and they'd just be so much on making the in-game DLC store or some shit,
yeah,
like
yeah,
ruining the whole fucking book, or the whole series for people by putting this shit in. Like they'll like you're talking about crossovers, like a crossover in this game would just seem it could seem very out of place. But like
Funcom is
I'm
the
sure
name of the
they're
studio, by the way.
huh
Funcom is the name of the studio, by
Funcom,
the
yep,
way. Sorry,
yeah,
yeah,
Funcom, yeah, yeah. But man, I'm hoping it's good because there's been a lot of Dune games, and nothing really appealed to me. So this could be great. I'm hoping it's good,
yeah.
and it could build more hype for the movies too. And man, I'd love to see some more movies because the series it gets wild, absolutely wild.
I need to watch
Uh,
those.
oh, you haven't watched the
I
movies?
haven't watched either of them. No,
Oh yeah.
I'm quite familiar with them, just like through the grapevine, but I haven't seen either of the movies myself. No,
Did I discuss that in the previous podcast?
don't think so.
Um, I when I read the first book, um, I think I got halfway through it, and I just didn't like it. I just couldn't understand, the build up or anything, or the characters or anything. It just wasn't getting it, and I set it down. I just forgot about it, and then later I was like, I might as well finish this just to say I finished it.
Yeah,
And I picked it back up, and the other half of the book was way better, to a
yeah.
point that the first half of the book exists just to set up the second half, and now it makes sense.
The movies.
And then I ran on, yeah, and then I went on to read the other 5 books in the series,
Yeah,
and the movies were the same way.
am
I
I
saw the
correct in
first
saying that
movie,
happened? Because I remember hearing that
yeah,
when the second movie came out, that it's kind of a two-parter, maybe a
yep,
two-part.
mhm,
Hmm.
yep. They're both the first book.
Yeah,
So I feel like it's very similar where you can watch the first movie and you just be like, "I don't get it," but I'm like, "Okay, now you're ready to watch the second movie." So the second movie doesn't have to waste time explaining things. It can
yeah,
just go straight off. And now the second movie makes more sense and you can enjoy it way more. And just the aesthetic of the first movie, I think, was something that even if you didn't enjoy the characters, the story or anything, like just just the sets and the special effects, the costumes, they did such a good job of making it accurate to the books, you know, that a fan like me could appreciate it. But also I think someone who just likes sci-fi in general will appreciate just how authentic it feels.
yes,
So highly recommend.
yeah. Think it's time to talk about Monster Hunter Wilds. That's kind of a big one. I left it kind of late, but Monster Hunter Wild is it's in a second playtest. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's the second,
Are you in this
maybe
one?
out of 3, I think. It's an open one,
It's an open
I'm
one.
pretty sure.
Right, my bad.
So I could jump in.
It's
And I
interesting
probably
because
will
it
soon.
yeah, interesting because it releases. Am I correct in saying it releases on like the 28th of this month?
24th, 28th. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It releases pretty soon.
Yeah,
So this could be just be some. This is so late in the
it's marketing.
development cycle
Yeah,
that you couldn't explain
no,
you couldn't pass it off as a beta test
no,
or anything like it's literally just marketing and building hype.
yeah, which is fine.
And
I mean,
so
people are playing the
I'm
game for free.
completely
It's
fine with it.
fine.
I want to play that game now,
Yeah, you
but
have
hey,
played it, right?
this is close enough, huh?
You have
Yeah,
played it,
yeah.
yeah.
I played the first beta, and it was more different from
World
um, Worlds and
Rise.
Rise than Rise and Worlds were from each other. Because
Really? That's
Rise
really strange
Rise
that you
and
say that because
Worlds
I think it looks a lot
felt
like World.
really. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel it's different enough from both of those because
that's good.
um,
Yeah.
just how the combat feels, the way that the town isn't like a separate instance; it's part of the
Oh, it's
map.
not?
And you can just no,
Wow.
you walk into town, and there's people there. There's other players, not in your private lobby, but just in I don't know, maybe it's like a server, or,
Yeah.
or something like that, or regional, but like there's other people that you can see, and it feels like a much more fleshed out town. And you just walk out of town, and you just start doing quests, and then you ride your mount back into
More
town,
traditional.
like
Probably possibly a little bit more
yeah,
traditional MMO.
yeah, and it has much more free flowing quests. You can just go out and do quests. You don't like go to the quest maker and you engage in the quest and all this stupid stuff that I hated about the other ones.
Yeah.
That you just
I think
it's
for
just
me
out
that
there
for
to
me
do.
that's I'm a big Monster Hunter World fan, but for me that
Hmm.
series has a lot of quality of life issues, and it always has. Like
Did
even
you?
even
Oh yeah,
even
yes,
toward the
yes.
even toward
And
the
then and then my introduction was like one of the Wii titles, which I didn't like, but I think the game that I played after that was World, which I was able to get into. And I remember having a lot of gripes about that, but hearing about how much better it was from the earlier games, I was like, "Oh man, that's rough." Because
yeah
just this game, I really have a lot of reservations about.
yeah.
But did you play Rise?
I played Rise. I played Rise very briefly, like maybe for a few, like maybe like 5 to 10 hours of playtime.
I feel like I like Rise more than Worlds
Rise
just
was
because they
the quality of life was much better in that game. It was
they smoothed out a lot of
it's a
the
streamlined version.
edges.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's still some gripes there, but like it feels like they worked on it.
it's improvement.
And I haven't played Wilds enough to know how much different it is as far as that, because a lot of those systems are things that they slowly introduce to you over the game, and
Yeah,
it slowly gets more complicated as they introduce, like the different upgrades and the gems and the abilities and the different styles and all that stuff that they throw at you.
yeah.
So, um, which I'm sure they will put in. But just from what I've seen, it just feels a bit smoother in the gameplay aspect. Although I hear that's completely different from the graphics aspect for
Yeah,
a lot of people.
yeah.
I had a friend who had to
Sorry,
run it at low
I
everything.
was about to
He
say,
he even gave me a screenshot of it. It looked like potato
does he
graphics.
have a good
Like everything
PC?
was just blurry. And it was decent. He's been able to play most games fine,
Yeah,
but like
it's
it just
causing
he
a
was
lot of
missing
people's
textures and stuff. I
really
mean, it was yeah, there was like objects that just weren't even
disappointing.
rendering at him at all.
Yeah, it's
Like you
definitely
wouldn't
it's
even
causing a
see
lot of
some of these
issues.
objects.
Yeah,
Yeah, so and for I've got a pretty good system and I wasn't getting that amazing I mean it was playable, but I wasn't getting like the kind of frame rate I'd be getting in other games of similar graphic style.
yeah.
So
Bit of
there is
optimization
a lot
issue
of
there.
yeah, there could easily be something with optimization. I've definitely heard about a lot of complaints about that.
Luckily,
But
I don't really think it's a game that like you need 100 FPS to play. If in fact, Monster Hunter World is probably it's probably one of those games like Souls games like Elden Ring where you just I personally don't think I'd be concerned about frame rate that much as long as I'm getting like 50, 60. If I was playing Monster
yeah.
Hunter, if I was playing Monster Hunter Wild, I think I'd be okay. Still, I mean, graphically, yeah, it's not like it looks good. It's not like anything special, though. At least I don't think so. From like the benchmarks I've watched, and the performance is like
Mhm.
really not acceptable for those visuals. That could change, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But that's how it is right now. Looks of it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Coming out soon, so
It's coming out on 28th of February. Avowed is coming out next week. That's an Xbox exclusive. Have you seen much about Avowed?
Mm-mm.
It's made by Obsidian, the people who made Fallout New Vegas and like most recently Outer Worlds. I didn't like Outer Worlds very much, but Obsidian they're a well-regarded studio, and Avowed is an Xbox exclusive that looks kind of good. It's got like fantasy, kind of like Outer Worlds vibe, like the open world, like the Fallout gameplay vibe, like
An Xbox
Skyrim.
exclusive?
Yeah, sorry, and assumedly PC Xbox. Yeah, it's not coming out on PlayStation.
Oh,
Let
PC
me let me
Xbox.
double check myself.
Okay, I was gonna say an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah, I'm
Really? Those exist?
including like Xbox on PC.
Yeah, but I mean, like people kind of make fun of Xbox for not having exclusives, but I'm like, I love it. There's none of that shit where there's a game on the Xbox that I couldn't. Because how messed up was it that the game of the year was won by a game that many people couldn't even play because it was only on the PS5?
Ugh,
You know,
don't get me started on Game
like
of the Year 2024. I had a lot of issues with it.
terrible optics for that.
Yeah,
Ignoring anything about the game, it's just the fact that it's a console exclusive is just.
I think Black Myth Wukong got shafted, and
Yeah, like
partly
that was
Helldivers
such a
as well.
great. Yeah, yeah. I mean, personally, I would have loved to seen Helldivers get it, but I would understand if Wukong got it because of just the
It's like
kind of
Wukong is like
success it had.
it's a triumph for China. Like it's a landmark game. It was
Mhm.
and it was just great anyway. It was a fantastic game. It's probably one of the best Souls. It's possibly the best Souls like to not be like a From Software game. It's up there with like Lies of P, which is another fantastic
Mhm.
game. Um, and I got beaten out by Astrobot. I haven't played Astrobot, so I feel like I can't tear it to shreds. But it just felt really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
The people who play
To lose
Astrobot
out to
probably
some,
know why it's Game of the Year.
I
I
guess,
guess.
just some first party
Yeah.
exclusive. I just something about that just disgusts me. I mean, I'm not. I haven't even played the game, so I won't say much about the game itself. But just those two things about it just leaves a
Yeah.
leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah. If I can get back to Avowed, just because it leads into the topic of Xbox kind of making some moves recently, because they've had a
Mhm.
couple of good exclusives recently, because, well, assuming Avowed lives up to the hype, um, that comes out on February 18th, so we'll see soon. But they've had a little bit going recently because Xbox definitely had a slow few years, but they've had Indiana Jones and Stalker 2 recently, which I love both of those games. Indiana Jones: The Great Circle and Stalker 2 are both fantastic.
Mhm.
I love them a lot. And aside from those cool games, they are pretty obviously, according to some leaks and genuine news articles, Xbox is basically ditching their platform. Am I correct in saying that? Am I explaining that correctly? They are kind of expanding across all platforms, and they're not going to rely on the Xbox
I
really
mean, they've kind
anymore.
of been doing that already.
Yeah, but I mean to a
Uh,
great degree. For example, games
yeah.
like all exclusives going on to PS5, such as Halo.
Well, to get back on that, I haven't been much of a console player since let's say like the Xbox 360, PS3 era,
Yeah.
something like that. Um, and so I remember trying to get back into the console. I bought an Xbox One, and I just didn't play it. I
Ooh,
maybe had like
the
two
Xbox
or
One
four
was
hours
rough.
on that. And it's just that there wasn't anything on Xbox One that I couldn't get on PC.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not to say that, it needs exclusives because, I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff, but I feel like it was just for a different crowd, for people who didn't want a PC, who don't want the complexity of who don't want the simplicity of a console with the price of a console. I feel like that's who that's for. So I think even back then they were focusing on that. And since then they've done, the pass, the games pass, which works for console and the PC.
Hmm.
And so really I feel like that's been their push for a while,
Yeah.
where they're just getting games out. Their console is just another method,
Yeah.
which I think is great. I think that's a great move to not only just for them to go from console to being with PC, but just for consoles to be more of a of an additional form
Mhm.
of a way to play a game rather than a separate, walled off garden of games for people, like the exclusives. So I'm for it, and I think it's great they're doing it, and the lack of, or not lack of, but the changing from exclusives to being put on PlayStation and stuff. Like, I can't understand why people would be against that. You're
Oh,
giving
they
it,
are. Like, it's
yeah. I
bizarre,
mean,
but they are.
yeah, it's so dumb. Like you're giving access, you know, to these games for more people and more markets on more
Mhm,
systems.
mhm.
I mean, it seems like a win-win. More people get to play it. The developers get to sell it to more people. Like,
No, man,
I
some people will just die on the
what are the
console war.
criticisms for it?
No, some people will die on the
Like,
console war hill. I'm not even lying. Like, you see it on Twitter every day. Like, some people will die on the console war hill. Like,
is that
these
it?
there are some frontline soldiers out there. Like there are the everyday frontline soldiers who, you know, like a
Is
schoolboy
that the only
rivalry.
criticism of it? Because I don't understand what other reason you could possibly
Well, I think
be against something
the
like that.
only genuine criticism that I can think of is that, like, oh, like, keep Xbox, allow Xbox to keep its own identity, or things down that thought path, like, make it, give make Xbox games that are Xbox games and always will be Xbox games, and give Xbox that identity and give Xbox that unique selling point. I feel like that's probably the only valid argument for that. But even
Mm,
then, I think you're
no,
a
that just feels like a veiled way of saying, keep
fuck you.
exclusives,
Yeah.
exclusives. Yeah, yeah. Like, no, I don't. I feel like games should be something that should be available to everyone, regardless of
Yeah,
platform.
like whenever possible.
And yeah, and like I was just talking about, I can't play Astro Boy or whatever the fuck
Astrobot.
it's called.
Astro
Astro
Boy.
Bot. I can't play that shit. I don't own a PS5, and I'm not going to own one anytime soon. Even if someone gave it to me for free, I don't think I'd play on it because it's just not my preferred form. So just because I don't like playing on consoles, now there's all these games I can't play on it. You know that I don't feel like that's fair. And
Yeah.
the same in reverse. Just because people prefer to play on console, should they not have access to all these awesome indie games we get to play on PC? I think they should be on, console too. And I know there's development aspects to that, but it's a lot more that, like, um there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through that are more so put there, by the console companies themselves. So yeah, I think it's great, and I haven't heard any valid criticism of it.
Me neither.
And yeah,
I've
and
also
so, like, the more the better. And
yeah.
also, hopefully, it gets less of the consolification, because for a while we've been getting a lot of PC port versions of console games, and we get the restricted graphics, the restricted customization,
Mhm.
and I'm tired of that shit. So if it puts the end of just that, I'd be happy. But that's just a benefit to one of it.
Yeah,
So
I'm already seeing the positive impact of it
mhm.
at work, because my coworker Nathan, he's a Gears of War fan, but he's been on PlayStation since like the Xbox 360. So
Yeah.
he's excited about the I think the way Xbox are treating this, likely possibility that Gears of War will go on PlayStation, Halo will go on PlayStation at some point in the hopefully near future, and then there's people like that all over the world who are going to play these games, who are going to play those games for the first time, and
Mhm.
how can you have an issue with that? Like,
It's
tell me the
good for
problem.
games.
Yeah.
It's good for games, good for gamers. And in the end, it's good for the people who made the games. I mean, win-win. You're pretty much manufacturing some bullshit when you talk about how the consoles should stay separated, and all this crap.
Hmm.
It's it's the people who own the consoles. These aren't people on PC or Xbox owners who don't have a PS5 who are advocating for keeping the games. They're PS5 owners who are advocating, or
Yeah.
they're Xbox owners who don't have a PC who are advocating for keeping it on. Like, I feel like they're just completely biased and they don't even
Hmm.
realize it, which is
Yeah.
pretty in line with the kind of times that we have. But yeah.
Are you familiar with, or do you like the Rocksteady Batman Arkham games? Please say yes.
I have not played a single
No
Arkham Batman game.
way.
Mm-mm, not one. No. Mm-mm.
That's the most insane thing I've heard all day. What the fuck?
I haven't. I don't know. Just not my style of game. I guess. I
I can see that
generally
actually.
gravitate toward more multiplayer
Yeah.
games, especially in recent years.
You're not a big
A
super.
lot of
You're not like a particularly huge superhero guy either, are you? Right?
generally no,
No. That's, I
no.
guess it
Like
does make sense. It's not that shocking, really. Maybe perhaps I overreacted. But there's a little
yeah,
bit of news on that regard because I love those. I think
mhm.
Arkham Knight is my favorite. I like Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. Played
I've
them
heard
when they
amazing
came out.
things about the
They're
games. Yeah.
fantastic. They're just graphically they're like Arkham Knight like looks insane to this day. They're just the production value and the storytelling and the gameplay it's really good. Rocksteady really.
I've heard so much good things about them. That's it's definitely that one of the series where when Steam has a sale and I see some amazing discounts and I'm like,
You'll give it a go.
wow, Arkham for like, $4 or whatever.
Oh,
I'm
it's
like,
when you say
yeah,
that
I'll
because
have that.
Arkham is one of those games that does that all the time. I'm pretty sure at one time
Oh
you
yeah.
could buy the whole trilogy for like £5 at one point.
I think I may have done that at some point. Like
Yeah.
it's undoubtedly in my library because I remember scooping up some of them like, ooh, what a deal. I've definitely gotta play this at some point. So they're in my library. They're on my list. They're not probably very high up on my list, but um, I've heard a lot of good things about it. What I've seen, it's very quality stuff as far as graphics and gameplay and just the characters
Oh,
and
it
the
is.
voice
At the
acting.
time, it was peak. Yeah.
Hmm.
And there's a little bit of news on it. They've confirmed a new game, which is really good news for me anyway, because I thought the development team was fucked after I don't know if you've heard the shenanigans with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Wait, is this the same
The
studio that did
same studio,
Oh
which
no!
is extreme,
So
which is bizarre.
did this studio work on the Arkham games?
Rocksteady.
On all of them, or most of them, or the newer ones, or
I'm gonna say all of them. There's a chance I'm wrong
okay,
about like one or two, but yeah,
okay.
it's their baby. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, because yeah, they definitely they definitely shit the bed with Suicide Squad game. Like, holy crap. That was terrible as far as marketing and optics and just how didn't
yeah,
they canceled like before even season 1 was out or something like that? Like, it was
so,
pretty early
something like that. Yeah, there was
when
a
they
well
realized how crappy
that
it
kind of
was.
ties in with what I'm gonna say because in that game this is crazy. Like I think
Mhm.
even you will find this crazy if someone who is just not familiar at all. The so it's called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League because the Justice League, like Wonder Woman, the Flash, Batman, Superman,
Mhm.
um, become evil. They're possessed or something. I haven't played the fucking game. I'm never going to. I don't know. They're evil for some reason, and the Suicide Squad, like goes after them all. And the Batman, who is canonically the Batman from the Rocksteady Arkham games, is
Mhm.
killed by Harley Quinn
Mhm.
canonically
I've
in the
heard.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this
Wild.
was just wild when it happened. There was outroar, like as expected, because that's a beloved character. His trilogy was ended. His story was ended
Mhm.
perfectly, and he was killed by Harley Quinn. He was shot in the
Mhm.
head by Harley Quinn, like a sad puppy. But funny though, because as when the live service eventually ended, like you said, I think it got cancelled and shortened down, maybe probably because no one was playing it.
Yep.
Um, in a 2D cutscene, at the end of the final season, they confirmed that all of the Justice League in the game were clones.
Hmm.
Obviously, as a very desperate backtrack to revert that decision. So that Batman that was killed by Harley Quinn is probably not, or I guess is definitely not the Rocksteady Batman.
That's a very video game way of,
Yeah,
"Oh my god, honey, it was a dream this whole time,"
yeah, yeah. No, it literally
waking
is.
up from a dream at the end of whatever.
Yeah.
Such a stupid cop out. And of course, what a absolutely terrible plot hole it is that no matter how strong you are, how amazing of a superpower you have, how one in a million you think you are, we just need a little bit of your DNA and boom, we got another one.
Yeah, it happens it
Like,
happens a surprising amount in
yeah, yeah.
across movies
So,
and games.
mm,
But it anyway, yeah. Leading from that, they have announced a new game, like a Batman game. So the Rocksteady, uh, as it is today, is developing a new Batman game. They have said it's years off, and I don't know, they probably haven't even started making it yet.
years
It's
off?
confirmed. Yeah, it's years off.
Okay.
So they might
Hmm.
they confirmed that there's gonna be one. There will be one at some
Okay.
point in the future. It's not finished. There will be another
Well,
Batman Rocksteady game.
hopefully it's as good as the other ones because DC could use
Well,
some
it's not gonna
love.
be, is it? Well, it's not gonna be, is
Uh,
it? I might.
I mean,
All of the love
if
and
they
the
learned anything from Suicide Squad, it's that they should keep to what they're good at, which is making
yeah,
these single player centric
no one learns
beat 'em
anything.
ups.
No one learns anything in this industry.
I'm being
Swear.
optimistic,
I'd love to be
but
optimistic.
there's ways to learn from this. Uh, so here's hoping they got some. And I mean, like before the Suicide Squad, if this is the company who did the Arkham games, they were just banger after banger, you know. Um,
Yeah, but you know all those
like
people are long gone. There's surely like
so,
the spark might be out.
assuming they have most of the people there who were there for the other previous games, I think there's a chance. But if they're like, BioWare, where like anyone who is involved in any of the games that you remember from when they were at their prime is gone, then
I think that's all
uh,
studios. I really think that is all studios. I think people
it's
underestimate
it's
how
it's a
fast
lot
people
of
move
them.
on. Yeah.
It's quite a lot of them. So I mean, we'll see. But luckily, it's not a series that I'm very invested in, so I don't have to worry too much about it. Um, but I think DC could use some some good hits, especially with what Marvel put out recently.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we'll see about that.
Their James Gunn cinematic universe on the way. That'll be great.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see about that one.
We will see. Um, Anything else you wanted to talk about today? Think I'm dry.
Hmm.
I'm dry.
Man, that's most of the topics right there.
Oof, that was
Nothing's
good though.
really
I feel like I
sticking
let off
out.
steam. I
Yeah,
feel like I let off a lot of steam.
yeah. We covered some good ground.
Like I said before, like I said earlier, I feel like I missed stuff because it's been such a mad week. But maybe I did, maybe I didn't.
We'll
We can always
just
do it next week.
Yeah, we can always do it
Yeah,
next week. There's going to be a lot of times where I'm sure we aren't able to cover everything,
yeah,
and
and
especially the stuff that isn't going to be out for a while.
yeah,
We can cover later.
and I feel
Just as
like
long
I
as we cover
also
the more relevant stuff.
yeah, I also wanted to talk about like I know I've always wanted to slip movies and TV in there, but honestly I've not been into any recent like games dominated this week anyway, so that's just
Mhm.
wasn't happening.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I hear you.
I think I'm all done. I think I've exhausted myself.
Yeah, yeah. We can wrap it up. That's pretty good.
All right, that was episode 2.
All
I am
right.
ending it there.